Hey, hey! Welcome to the morning warm-up. It's morning somewhere, just not here. Hey gang, how are you? So we're finally making it happen. First of all, we're here. It's issue 25. We've made it this far. So I hope today, first of all, finds you and yours safe and healthy, wearing your masks, washing your hands, all that sort of stuff. So we're here at 25, and I want to take a moment to thank all of you out there from across the globe, because we've made it this far, and we've only done it thanks to your support and your eyeballs. Look, I know that my smooth delivery, my calm composure, and technical prowess with my tech gear here might give you all the impression this show is easy. Easy to do it. But let me tell you, it's anything of the sort. A little secret from like the neck down, I'm nothing but flop sweat. I know. But look, knowing that you true believers keep coming back and tuning in, whether it's live or watching it later on YouTube, makes all of this work worthwhile. And I hope that it offers you guys a little bit of a distraction during your day, and maybe some of you learn something new from one of my guests, and perhaps even get a little bit of inspiration. I know that I certainly get all three, so thanks for indulging me. And let's do some more, okay? Also, I don't want to forget, pardon me, allergies are killing me. A big thanks to the folks at Marvel New Media who have to deal with my silliness. They're the people really behind the scenes that keep me from like hitting the wrong switch and blowing the whole place up. So look, let's get to our guests. We have tried twice before, Adam and I, to get his episode going. The first time, I blame Adam. His tech, he was, Adam is, look, we're not all great with tech. Adam's like old man bad with tech, all right? I'm not quite that bad, but yeah, he's pretty bad. Anyway, that first time was on Adam. The second time, my internet just blew up. So it started to feel like we were getting a little bit cursed by the tech gods, but here we are. So I'm here with Adam. He's one of the greatest artists in the history of comics. He also is one of the keepers of the flame of an incredible family legacy. So without further ado, folks, let's hope this works. I'm going to hit the button. Let's see if Adam's there. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Kubert. There he is. Adam. And he's frozen. Wait, you're frozen. Oh, no. I can hear you.
Is it working?
Oh, no.
Am I frozen?
Oh, my gosh.
No.
Hold on.
That's a terrible shot of me, too.
I know. Let me see what I can do here. You can see it yourself. You're frozen. Let me see if your other cam. Hang on. You got an art cam going there, too. Can you move your hand across the art cam? Let's see if that's working. Okay, that's working. So let's see if that camera is not working. Oh.
Well, how about if I just sign language?
Maybe. I have a feeling that you'll come back at some point, that camera will catch up. That is just really, really weird.
That is weird. That's horrible.
We cannot do this.
Is there something I can do?
You know what? I'm gonna go to your art cam here for a second, all right? Because I think at least folks could see you draw. And that was one of the really fun parts about today, is the fact that you're actually going to draw for us. So why don't we talk a little bit while you draw, and maybe that other camera will right itself at some point. Let me see if there's something I could do here on my end on Skype. Hold on. This is fantastic, man.
Okay. Just great. Here,
I know it's not on my end this time. I know. But Adam,
is there something I could do?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid because you might touch something and blow the whole darn thing up. Really, So yeah, I don't know.
This grandpa feels the same way.
It's unreal. It really is. But we got this camera working. So, but I do think the problem is the dual cameras, because your resolution went way down once you tried the dual camera. But let's start with this one anyway. Okay. So Adam, look, well, first of all, what are you working on? What are you drawing there? It looks like a little Wolverine and.
This is from Wolverine #1, page 18, but this is not obviously this is not a live page. I do some of my pages digitally, and I draw some of the pages conventionally.
Right.
The ones that I do digitally, you could see this is just a rough. I'll scan this in and I'll finish it off. Those are the ones that I do digitally. Ones that I do conventionally, I'll scan. I'll actually finish off, the original page, and so at least I'm left with an original.
Right.
But this one, I did a Hero Initiative chat where we actually gave away this page, and I was going to finish off one head on this page, and we were going to give it to one of the 15 people that we were chatting with at that time.
That's cool.
So that's what this is.
Yeah. And we all know how wonderful the Hero Initiative is too. I mean, I'm biased.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of directors, but they do great work. So I'm still freaked out by this cam thing. It's literally like I
no, me too.
Yeah. Man.
You know what I could do? I could put my camera on me. You want me to try it?
You mean the art cam?
This one I could put on me.
Why don't you try that? Oh God, this is gonna go horribly wrong. Well, that's not great.
I like it better on this. Oh shoot! Okay.
Time to call for Tracy.
I messed this all up.
Tracy alarm.
Yeah. You know what? You want me to?
Yeah, call Tracy because people have been waiting long enough for this, and we need to get that camera right there.
Yeah.
Unfrozen.
Okay. Let me text. Okay.
Let me see what happens if I.
Okay.
Oh no, that's wrong.
Okay. I'll be right.
Yeah, you come back. All right, we'll wait for Adam to unfreeze here. I'm gonna play with some of this stuff here, see if there's anything. That gives me 3 Adams. That gives me no Adam. And he's still frozen. Well, folks, we're trying. We're not going to give up on this one. It's certainly not as bad as our first time when we did this, where I had a 10-second delay in my headphones. So that was really kind of impossible. All right.
Okay. I'm just going to help while I swear a little bit, okay?
Should I put you on mute, Adam? He might have put himself on mute. Anyway, so I was going to assume that you guys are familiar with Adam's work, and if you're not, you should definitely check it out. He is not only, like I said, carries the legacy of the Kubert name. His father was truly one of the greats, the legendary greats in the history of comics. But he's also a legend at Marvel. Adam's been working with us for I don't know how many years. I'm afraid to look, but he's done some of the best comics we've ever done, including he's probably one of the most renowned Wolverine artists, quintessential Wolverine artists. You still there, Adam? Have I got you? Not yet. Let's see. His artboard's there. Adam's gone. So this is probably a good time for me to remind you guys out there that we're also going to be taking questions if you have any. I already have a stack of questions from the 2 previous ill-fated attempts to get Adam on the show. So, but if you have any questions, make sure to ask them onto the feed. I cannot see the questions, but someone at Marvel New Media is looking at the questions. That if you have any of them, they're going to pop them here on my other screen, where I can see, I lost Adam completely. That's fantastic. All right, let's see what we can do here. Hold on. Let's try. I don't know if you guys hear it, but I'm getting the Skype ringtone. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
You're back. You're back with the live cam.
Okay.
Live Hang on a second. I'm sorry. The art cam.
Right.
I do not see your other camera though.
It doesn't see me.
No.
And I'm saying the second camera is not there. I could only see the art cam.
Do you want it to work? Because
So Tracy's here to rescue us. But yeah, go ahead, Adam. What?
I don't know why you have so many problems.
Oh, hang on.
I think we're switching cameras.
We're switching cameras. All right. Let's see here.
Yeah. And everybody can hear everything.
Oh yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. So Please don't cuss. For those who don't know, Tracy's Adam's wife, and she knows what she's doing. And the minute she leaves the room, Adam just blows it all up.
Freezes up.
Yeah. I don't know what you're doing, man. It was literally.
Thank God
I was telling Adam. Usually I'm running behind. You guys know. Usually our noon starts are usually like 12:03, 12:05, sometimes a little bit later. This is the first time that we were actually going to start on time, so I knew there was something wrong here. Okay, we're getting the art cam again. But the other camera's not.
I don't see that. The other camera's not on. The laptop camera.
He has.
Oops.
Oh.
As your.
Okay. Let's see.
He can change.
He is.
This is riveting streaming.
Yeah, this.
I would ask you questions
I
right
guess
now, Adam, but I know you're too preoccupied.
You can go ahead.
I mean, Adam, if you have to scrap the drawing, let's scrap the drawing and just get a camera on you. I think that might be the simplest thing. Maybe we're overcomplicating this.
Yeah. Let me just mute for 1 second.
All right. Adam's muting. We're waiting here. Okay. Well, still not seeing his other camera. I'm sure there's somebody watching this right now who could tell us what Adam is doing wrong. But by the time we get that, let's see. Right? No, nothing yet. So I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. That was Todd McFarlane. I thought it was really, really great of Todd, first of all, to join me on the show. And he was nutty. I love Todd. My favorite part was when Todd stuck his foot into the camera, just to show you guys how foreshortening and how Spider-Man's anatomy works. That was probably a highlight of my career, was Todd's sockless foot. So if you guys didn't catch that episode, please do. There's so much there. And not only that, it's incredibly, incredibly inspirational. Now let's see where Adam's at now. Okay, we've lost all of Adam's cameras. Okay. I'm just going to have to vamp here. Not quite sure what to vamp with. All right.
Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Adam.
Okay, we're still trying to work through this. I'm thinking maybe I should just switch to my phone.
Okay.
And
so should I Skype you back?
should you Skype me on my phone? Okay, we tried it back on the laptop, and it doesn't seem to be.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Right.
There, it switches. There, you can see that, and it switches the camera to your FaceTime.
Yeah. Can you call me back, and I'll just go from my phone. I have my phone set up.
Okay. We're gonna Skype you back on your phone.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Great.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Here we go. All right, folks, bear with me. We're hanging up here. And we're trying Adam again. All right, let's see what we have here. We still have no video, Adam.
No video on my phone.
No.
Can you hear me, Joe?
I can hear you.
No video on my phone.
I'm not sure what this.
Let's see.
Tracy's frustration is palpable here.
There you go.
Wait, how about now?
There
we go.
Look at that.
Oh my
Yay.
God. I just gotta have it go through my headset.
Okay, that's Bluetooth.
Let me make
Adam,
sure I got my Bluetooth on. It's on. My Bluetooth is on. Let me take these things out. They're not helping.
Okay.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Are we good? We're shaking?
I can see it. You're great. I can see you. You're great. Fantastic.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Just
Adam.
volume up.
It never ends. This is the last time I'm doing this with you. I swear to God, the last time I'm doing it with you. You there?
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Why?
Give me 1 second. 1 second.
Oh, well, on the bright side, folks, is if you decide to watch this later on YouTube, we're going to trim all of this stuff out. We're just going to get right to the interview. So it'll be a little bit shorter. I don't know where Adam went now. He's just gone again. It's a good thing he's a great artist and he doesn't work in IT because that would be...
Okay.
All right.
All
You're
right.
set now. You're good.
Okay. I just had to get up and comb my hair. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. So hang on. I want to make sure
Okay,
that
we're good.
All right, so we're working here.
We're working.
The full Adam cam here. Let's see. I want to make sure you're doing well here. Hang on. No, that's just me. Hang on a second. I need an Adam cam. Get myself out of here. Okay, cool. All right, so we're just doing a little vertical. Are you okay now? You catch your breath?
I
Good?
think I'm settled.
You settled down. All right, brother. Yeah. So listen, I want to talk to you. Clearly, we've known each other for a million years. And we sort of, our careers in a lot of ways. As I started to do, some of the research. I mean, I've known you for a while, but still, I like doing research for these shows. It really is crazy how we've sort of, our careers parallel each other in the sense of like, not necessarily the things that we've done, but the fact that, we kind of started at the same point and, we're still here.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. And like the biggest parallels I see also is I see it in your work and I know it from my own, is that there's a constant change stylistically and hopefully, at least from my end, an improvement in the knowledge of how to tell a story, anatomy and stuff like that. So I feel this sort of kinship with you, and I always have, and I've always loved your stuff. And the way that you approach story, because, when we talk about stuff, it's just like, oh yeah, I do the same thing. Yeah, I do the same thing. And then we compare notes and we talk about Photoshop brushes and things that we use. So tell me a little bit about it, but you have one thing that I never had to, I don't want to say deal with, but I never had to experience, which is a legacy, right? I mean, can we talk a little bit about your father? I think people know historically, and by the way, if you don't know who Joe Kubert is, please go look it up, okay? Because he's arguably one of the top 3, if not top 5, most influential people who ever put pen or brush to paper in this industry. Just an amazing draftsman and storyteller. But you knew him as Dad, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like growing up with Joe Kubert as your father? And I'm gonna highlight a little bit like with my own daughter, right? When my daughter was, I could tell from a very young age, she could draw. She had talent. She wanted to have nothing to do with it. And later on, I very discreetly I said, "Why didn't you ever do this?" And she's like, "Because that's your thing. It's not my thing." And I think the pressure of having a dad who's done it, or a mom who's done it, weighs heavily on a kid, especially if they want to make their own name. So she's artistic in a lot of different things, but doesn't want to do it in my world. But you chose to sort of get into your dad's world. So I just wanted to preface it and frame it with that. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, when I first started out, I chose not to go into comics. And pretty much that was because, my dad cast a huge shadow over the entire business, much less me. So rather than enter the business that way, I decided to, Joe, I hate to mention that there's a technical problem, but I don't see you.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. That's not the purpose. See, I did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just highlighting. It's your interview. It's not a technical problem. This is planned.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Would it be possible to see you?
You want to see me? Okay. All right.
Yeah. Because then I'm talking to you instead of I'm looking at myself.
All right.
So rather than
go into comics and have to, fight that uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went into medical illustration. I have a degree in medical illustration. I went to Rochester Institute of Technology. But growing up, Kubert really was no different than growing up in another family. I mean, my dad was my dad.
Yeah.
I couldn't come home late. He was very strict. It's funny because I just posted on Instagram this
I saw
letter.
this. I saw this.
This letter that I found. I'm going through stuff, and something my mom saved. So obviously it was something she wanted me to see later on.
Right.
Not at that particular time. Where I think it was a freshman in high school, and I was horsing around and I broke a film projector or something like that, and they sent a letter to my dad, and he was really angry about it. And so what I'm trying to say, really, I didn't realize how special my dad was until I went to a convention with him, and fans were grouped around. I mean, yes, he could draw, but that was my dad. He was up working late. He was drawing. Okay, he was drawing Tarzan and Sergeant Rock and Enemy Ace and all these unbelievable things. And these weren't things that I really had an appreciation for until I grew up myself and realized, after having gone through medical illustration, getting a degree, I figured out, I think college is all about not only figuring out what you want to do, but figuring out what you don't want to do. Right. And medical illustration wasn't something that interested me. But drawing out of my head did. I loved comics. I loved the stories. But I wasn't a fan's fan because, again, this is what I grew up with. The comic books were spread out all over the place. But it wasn't until later on, after I graduated college, that I figured I love drawing out of my head. And I figured out I love to tell stories with pictures, which is why I went through my dad's school 3 years there and really figured out what this business and storytelling was all about. Yeah. And that's really where I got my chops for storytelling, which is something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I'm just going to interject my own daughter here for a second. So, so my daughter, as a little kid, she didn't quite understand what it was that I did for a living, right? This is during the time that I was editor in chief. And I remember she was about 4 years old, and we had just moved into we just renovated an apartment that we were living in New York, and one of those home and garden shows decided that they wanted to do like a little thing on the kitchen we designed. So they came in and they filmed the kitchen, they filmed me and my wife, they filmed my daughter, they filmed the dog, the whole thing, and that was it. I forgot all about it, and then several months later, somebody said, "Hey, this thing is on the air." So I was like, "Oh, cool." So I take my daughter and I sit her on my lap because I'm like, she's going to see herself on TV for the first time. I'm interested in seeing the reaction. Again, she could care less. I mean, Marvel. She's heard the word Marvel since the moment she was born. She had, she's seen me draw. So all the stuff that you kind of take for granted, right? Because it's what your parents do. So it didn't seem like anything abnormal. So we're watching this little bit on the kitchen, and she sees her mom and she sees her dad, and it's like, no big deal, right? She sees herself on television, no big deal. I'm like, wow. She sees our dog on TV, no big deal. And then as the sort of the talking head in this thing, whoever that person was, they go starts talking about what I do. They go into B-roll, and the B-roll is me sort of drawing on my art table. And in the B-roll, they write this really hyperbolic thing, which is, Joe Quesada is the king of comics, right? I'm not, but it's for a show. At that moment, for a 4-year-old little girl, right, who watches a lot of Disney stuff like that, princesses, kings, queens, that stuff resonates. And the minute this person says, Joe Quesada, the king of comics, suddenly she just did this slow turn and looks at me as though she had never seen me before in her entire life.
That is amazing.
And it's like, you're a king?
Great.
And then all of a sudden she realized if I'm a king, she's a princess, right? And
Yeah,
it was I wished I had taped the moment, but that was the moment where she realized, oh, okay, so he works for this company and this stuff means stuff. So that was a funny moment. But
that is great.
So did you have a moment like that with your dad, where suddenly it was like, he's Joe
absolutely.
Kubert? Adam,
Absolutely.
while you give this answer, I'm going to go to the single camera for a second, because I'm going to move some graphics. Because if we're gonna do the dual camera, I just want you to have graphics for that. So go ahead. So what was that moment with your dad?
Well, it was when I went to a convention with him. Fans were thronged around him,
right?
Asking for his autograph, and I looked around. I was like, "Holy jeez, what's going on here?" And I guess I must have been like 13, 14 years old,
right?
And I said, "This is cool." This was me becoming a princess, like Carly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
Yep. Now you're one of several siblings, right? But only two of you went into the business.
Right.
Did Andy get the comic book bug before you did? Because or was it afterwards, simultaneously?
It kind of happened at the same time.
Yeah.
We both ended up attending my dad's school at the same time in the same class. So and I mean he always said that he only went through there we go.
Look at you.
You've been digging through my Instagram.
I gotta tell you, outside of the beard and that hairdo, you really haven't aged much, man.
Thank you, Joe.
That is easily identifiable. That is you, without a doubt.
That's funny. That's when I started lettering for comic books, when I was, like 12, 13 years old.
That's you're the youngest person to ever letter a comic book in the history of comic books, correct?
I was on What's My Line as the youngest professional letterer.
You were on What's My Line?
I was on What's My Line, and Soupy Sales guessed me, and it was only because now I was so nervous when I went on that show. They had me letter my, you got to sign in. They had me letter my name, which was a dead giveaway.
Right.
Soupy Sales guessed me, but not before asking me. And I'm sitting next to Larry Blyden. Now I'm totally aging myself, but I don't care.
It's okay.
Larry Blyden was the MC, and Soupy says, "Are you some sort of calligrapher?" And I didn't know what calligraphy meant. I was,
Right.
So I looked at him. He nodded. Yes, you are. And I said, yeah, I am. But so
man, you got to meet Soupy Sales. That's awesome.
Soupy Sales. Greg Morris from Mission Impossible.
Wow.
Lionel Hampton was another guest on there.
My God.
And it's funny now back then, to let the studio audience know what I did, they did, I don't know, some kind of blue screen or something, but they put up a screen that had a word balloon and my name in it,
Right.
and that's what the audience would see.
Right.
I got that card and I had all the people sign that card and I have it framed.
That's
I've had
amazing.
it all this time.
Is that episode? Can you find it on YouTube or someplace?
We can't. But
It's gotta
Tracy used
exist
to work
somewhere.
I did a search through Viacom. Tracy used to, work for Viacom. She did
Right.
a search on the date, couldn't find it. But my mom did take photographs off of the TV screen, so that's the proof that I have.
Oh man,
that I was actually on it.
Somewhere.
Really funny.
It's got to be somewhere. It's got to be
Yeah,
somewhere.
you would think.
Yeah.
But that was a cool experience.
But yeah, I mean, I did want to bring up these graphics. When we're talking about the family.
Yeah.
There's your dad.
I love that picture.
I remember meeting your dad and shaking it. Now I consider my handshake pretty firm. He literally almost tore my arm off.
Yeah, he's got like a vice grip.
Yeah.
You look at that picture. Now it's great how my dad would set up his workspace. Now all artists' workspace are set up, for convenience, and,
Sure.
and there's no two that are alike. And what my dad would set up, he would cut out little cardboard things and put these pens over here. He'd have like a little styrofoam thing that he would have pens sticking out over there. He'd have like all on his desk, little cardboard cutouts. So he would put work that he's working on now, work that he's working on tomorrow, script, because he'd be working on 10 things at once, no exaggeration. So to keep everything organized. And he got everything done that way. But that picture, that's what it reminds me of how he used to set up his workspace.
It's a great photograph. It just sort of defines the family and the relationships. What's your workspace like?
Well, I could show you, but my,
No.
I won't touch anything.
Just describe it to us, Ed.
Well, I have 3 screens, my laptop, my Cintiq is in front of me, because I work both digitally and conventionally. And this is like a cockpit, and I got the cockpit idea from Neil Adams. I think he's got his chair in one, and he works, rolls his chair over there, rolls his chair over here. Yeah. So I kind of have. I don't want to have to get up to do stuff. I want everything, I'm sure you have your workspace set up so everything's at arm's reach. And I could do anything from my chair, so, I have, my ink and my pens and my markers, which I just started inking with, and it's really great to ink on the fly.
Are you using ink pens? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I use, some of these. Can you see these?
Are those the Kuritakis or?
Well, these are actually Pitt Artist Pen.
Okay.
But I use, really whatever marker works. Someday one marker works and the other one doesn't, and then it swaps out. But also, use dip pens and brush and black magic ink, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, my setup is. My setup is pretty crazy, especially now that I'm also doing these streams, right? So I have my computer screen. Oh, you can't see it over here, but I have a computer screen. I have my Cintiq. I have right here in front of me is an iPad that I have linked up to my computer as a third screen. In front of me, I have my camera and microphone, and I actually have a teleprompter display with another iPad in there. And I have I don't have a physical drawing board here in this particular studio, though I'm probably gonna bring my big one here. But then I have a sort of laptop drawing board that I put here on the side. So it's just kind of like L slightly U-shaped setup that I just like roll back and forth from.
You got to be ready for anything. Yeah, I got my laptop. With the drawing that I started before.
Right.
But and sometimes I'll go visit a friend here or my in-laws in Florida or whatnot, and I have multiple setups, which God forbid you forget a pencil or a pen or a brush or a special you got to duplicate these things too, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's actually I have a couple of studios, and they're all pretty much set up exactly the same way with the exact same tech.
Right.
One has my main computer, but then I'll just travel with my laptop if I need to. And that's all. So I'm trying to keep it all as identical as possible because God forbid it's not.
I know.
It takes hours to figure it out.
I know.
So I also want to show a piece here because this was a piece that one of those times. Oops, over your face. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
One of those times that didn't you work with your dad on this piece, right?
I did. Yeah, that's. It's like size of a postage stamp on my phone, but it looks like Ghost Rider and Blaze, right?
Yep. Hang on, I'll blow it up for a bit.
Okay.
I'll put it right here. Yep. Ghost Rider.
There you go.
And Johnny.
Yeah,
Blaze.
Ghost Rider and Blaze. Working with my dad was a real treat. Yeah. It had pluses and minuses. The pluses were obvious. Anything I put down, that piece is going to sing. It's going to be awesome.
Right.
But I would intend, and then I didn't have to pencil it tight, but I would pencil it tight because I want, even a 5% of myself to show through. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I would and he would always say, you don't have to pencil it so tight. This is like crazy. Just dip it in ink and it's good to go. Right. And my dad was, very, very fast. So, those are the two things. If you're good and you're fast, you can't go wrong. So, maybe if I'm falling behind on a deadline, Dad, I can't get these 5 pages of X, just give them to me. And he could turn around 5 pages in a day easy. I remember one time he was working with
pencil and
Andy,
inks?
Well, inks over me, but pencil and inks, he could do 5 pages in a day. Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. He was okay. So Andy was doing a flash cover, okay, and my dad was going to ink it. Andy, I remember, handed it to him before lunch, and he came back up after lunch, like half an hour later, and I swear to God, it was done. And this thing was so good, they made a poster out of it. I mean, it was like, you know, because he didn't like, when I draw, when I ink, when I work. This, you know, I love what I'm doing, but it's still work. I have to think. I'm second guessing myself, thinking super hard. My dad doesn't think. He doesn't sweat. He just bowls through it with an eye on the job that's, you know, 2 and 3 and 4 down the line. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, there's some people just get, you know, I often attribute it to, like, you know, finding the flow, right? That creative flow where it's sort of just pouring out. And some days are harder than others, right? But and there's just people who just tap into it all the time, and they just do it. You know, there's no second guessing. It just happens for them because they're not second guessing. You know, I'm sure that there's dozens of well, not dozens, but hundreds of drawings that I throw out during the course of a week that are probably good, but I can't stand looking at them because they just don't live up to my stupid expectations of what I want it to look like at the end of the day. I know you suffer the same way. So now, what was your first credited artwork? Was that at DC? Was it?
Are we talking lettering or drawing?
Drawing.
Okay. My first credited, I think, was a piece that I did when I was at my dad's school in the second year. It was reprinted in Pacific Comics.
Okay.
What was it? I think it was a Joe Kubert. Like, they approached my dad to put out a Kubert School comic book, and you know, I was fortunate enough where my 2-page story and like 10 other people had their stuff reprinted. So I think that was probably the very first piece that I had printed. Yeah.
And then when you came to Marvel, though, what was it Wolverine that really sort of, you know, brought you into the limelight, that initial run with Larry Hama?
It did. Okay. And thank God, like, some of these things I don't really, you know, I don't think about the job that I'm doing, like, you know, the thousands of people that are going to be seeing it or the importance of it. I kind of block that out of my mind. But you know, if I thought about, I'm doing Wolverine, this is, you know, when he first has the adamantium ripped out of him, I probably wouldn't have been able to get through it and to get it done.
Right.
But my first job over at Marvel, I think, was doing Spears of Vengeance, Ghost Rider and Blaze, which again, I didn't have that, you know, growing up on DC books, I didn't really have the preconceived notion of these characters. So I didn't have a history with them, or I got to be careful with them. I just did it. Yeah. You know, I didn't really think about what I was doing. I just kind of did it. Unlike, you know, the ones that I grew up, which were all the DC books. Right. You know, just to take a step back, I never went to a spinner rack. You know, I never went and bought comics. I never went to a comic shop. I swear to God, when I was young, the books were always there. My dad brought the comps home.
Yes, I'm not allowed to be frivolous.
Wow, serious talking to me.
And I'm not allowed to be frivolous.
Did you hear what she said? What the heck? You must have said something that triggered, hey Siri. Oh, okay.
That's funny.
Amazing. Anyway, go ahead.
So I, you know, other than what I saw on TV and in the movies growing up, I didn't really know Marvel existed. You know, it was only the DC books. So when I transitioned over to Marvel, transition probably isn't the right word. When I jumped over to Marvel, you know, those characters I didn't have a history with, so I didn't really freeze up. It wasn't, you know, I just did the job.
Yeah. So, but you know, it's interesting that you were on that book because you're a huge motorcycle aficionado, are you not?
Well, I love riding them. Yeah, and I've always, you know, grew up on dirt bikes and have ridden them all my life.
Yeah, because I noticed you draw them as often as you possibly can, and as many places as you possibly can, which I try to avoid because they're just a real drag to draw.
They're a pain in the butt.
Yeah, you gotta have the right reference. So let's talk about a little bit about this Wolverine run, because now this was about the time that Marvel had pulled me out of DC as well, right? And with the offer of doing one of the X-Men books, so I was invited to this gigantic sleepover X-Men summit. I forget, it was at some conference center or whatever that did this kind of stuff. Were you at those meetings? Because
No.
because I don't remember meeting you there. I mean, that's where I got to meet Greg Capullo there, and I met a lot of people for the first time there. You know, I remember Peter David was there. I remember Fabian was there. Bob Harris was running this thing, and it was great that they actually, you know, they invited the writers, of course, and they invited some of the artists. And I remember being there when Peter David just sort of blurted out jokingly. I'm pretty sure he wasn't serious. He said, "We should just suck the adamantium out of Wolverine's skeleton." and by the way, since then I've seen this happen at meetings that we've had subsequently later on in Marvel. And all of a sudden people started going, "Whoa, hey," and I think Peter was just like, wait a minute. I was kind of just joking. And, you know, it went from there. So I as I was researching your covers, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a flashback to that moment. Plus the fact I was really thankful that I didn't have to figure out how to draw how that actually physically happens to Wolverine. But you managed to do it, you know. Do you remember stylistically sort of your... I mean, this was a crazy time stylistically for artists. I'm sure you feel the same way I did. It was like everything
Definitely.
was like really over the top. When you look back at that artwork, I mean, what do you see? What do you think? I mean, here I'll post a couple of other pieces here. You know,
Those I love. Those are a couple of my favorites.
Yeah. You know, that first image there with Wolvie, you know, I love the fact that you went for the scale, right? And to show this guy he's not the tallest dude in the world, right? But, you know, you just don't want to mess with him. And then that iconic cover to the right of that is just stunning. Did you ask for those color choices, the simplicity of it, or was that your colorist that just thought, wow, this could work this way?
Well, the black, white, and red one, I drew it that way, so it was in only one color. Okay. I may have even colored that because when it's only one color, I can, handle it.
Yeah, you can voucher for that too. Get paid for it.
Yeah. But the other one, maybe like Marie Javin's color, the one with Wolverine on the bar.
Yep.
No, I mean, I look at these things and you know, it's such great memories, but you know, I know it happened a long time ago, but it's still fresh. It's still fresh in my mind. Yeah. You know, that splash page in particular, I don't think it was written that way because, you know, as my dad taught me, you know, once the story leaves the writer's hands, now it's the artist's job to tell the story the way he should. He thinks is the best way to tell it. So I feel as though if you know, if there's a point that I should highlight with a splash or with a larger panel, that's my choice. That particular page, I think I turned it into a splash because, you know, one of the cool things about Wolverine is the fact that he's this short guy and, you know, standing up against, you know, Juggernaut, which is, you know, he's a mountain of a man. You know, that was a cool thing, and you know, knock on wood, that one kind of worked out.
Right. Now, do you look back at the old stuff and just sometimes, because I look back at my old stuff all the time, and I'm just like, oh God, oh man, you know, what was I thinking? And I realized, well, it's a product of the times. You know, I was just sort of learning on the fly, and you know, there was this sort of over the top crazy style that was really sort of necessary at that point in comics if you wanted to get the big gigs. But also you worked with Larry Hama, who is Larry's a legend and a phenomenal writer. Did you guys have a collaboration, or was it just like Larry would hand the script and then you went to town?
You know, as you know, and I'm sure you've experienced, different writers like to work different ways along with different artists, and the collaborations, each one is different. Yeah. Larry would give me a script and I would draw it. Howard Mackey, when I worked on Ghost Rider, we talked all the time, you know, on the phone for hours and hours, you know. So each collaboration is different. With Larry, I didn't really even know how he felt about my work. You know, we didn't talk that much. So
if you didn't like it, I'm sure you'd find out. You know,
fingers crossed. I hope he likes what I'm doing because I'm combining panels, I'm making splash pages, double page spreads of panels, and just doing you touched on the art style that was going on back then. You're trying to make it as exciting as possible, as over the top as possible, but really you don't want to lose focus of what the story is about, which is kind of what it's like a fine line that you try to stay on.
No, I agree 100%. So let's talk a little bit then about Weapon X, man. You did some Weapon X. And
you really make me feel old now.
Oh, come on, man. Hang on. I have to rearrange these in different ways because we're going split screen here. But again, this was. I mean, we were talking about the over the top style, right? You could.
I can see it.
Wolvie's hair. The explosive panels, the insets and stuff. It was. And by the way, I think the most cringy thing was, looking back on it now, the coloring, right? Because we've advanced so far in coloring. You sit there, and go, if we had that cool computer coloring back then, how this stuff might have worked. But this was this was work that I was admiring. People were admiring everywhere. Your take on Wolverine. You've been doing this character for decades now. It's always been outstanding. You've always seemed to sort of capture the rawness of the character. And then when it comes to craziness, how about you were part of the whole Onslaught thing too? Why do you shake your head? You shake your head
because so many characters.
I know.
Those mega events. Those will kill you.
Yeah. Well, the mega events and working on anything that was X-Men related, right? You're sitting there going, oh, why are there 8 characters on this panel? What's going on? What do I have to do this? But I just thought the wonderful thing about your style, Adam, then and even today, and we'll show some of the more modern work, is that you got that quintessential thing that I think makes an artist a Marvel artist, which is characters are always in motion, right? We go back as far as Kirby, right? At my office and sort of studio at Marvel, I've blown up a whole bunch of Kirby black and white pages, and they're all over the wall, just to remind me that even when people are just sitting around talking, there's always motion, and the motion always feels like it's going forward. Just by the way that Jack would lay out his pages, and when and artists that do that tend to gravitate to the Marvel stuff, and I think that's pretty evident in what you did. But I also want to talk about one of your probably one of your great collaborations also, which was with Peter David on Hulk. And I had the pleasure of working with Peter on X Factor. How did you like your time working with Peter, and how did you enjoy doing this Hulk? Because you did do. I mean, Peter was on that. How long was Peter on that book? It was a tremendous run. Do you remember?
10 or 12 years, I think.
It's crazy, right?
I think he was on that long.
Yeah, and you were on from a certain point to the close, correct?
Yeah, I was the artist that killed him. But no, I mean, Peter's stories. I mean, they were so character driven, and you really can't get a more three-dimensional character than the Hulk. Between Hulk, Bruce Banner, and it seems as though Peter knew that that he saw the light at the end of the tunnel as far as his run is concerned.
Right.
And it seemed like he was really, writing his heart out with the stories that I was fortunate enough to draw. It was an awesome, at the time I didn't realize how awesome, and how lucky I was. But this was a really great time to be drawing the Hulk.
Yeah.
The last story that we drew, or that I drew, it was between him and Rick. Rick was narrating the whole story.
Yeah.
And Peter says, "Handle this however you want." Of course, I did all double page spreads with Rick narrating the whole thing. You can only see his hand with the cigarette. I think it's smoke with the cigarette. So that was a really special time and a really special story. And like I said, Peter's stories are just so character driven. That's perfect for somebody who like you, who feel as though the story is the most important thing.
Yeah, and we talked about this one page. I'm going to highlight it here for fans. You and I have talked sort of behind the scenes about this is the very last page of that run, and what I. And again, this to me is what separates the sort of the legendary prose from everyone else, right? And it's a simple thing. To me, the drawing of the girl on Rick's knee, the posture, the gesture, the turn of the head, right? Now, I've seen a dozen people draw this kind of a shot, and the kid will look stiff, they'll look sort of pasted on, but there was so much care taken to it, and I mean this is a great compliment. There's a sort of Barry Windsor Smith flow to it that I really, really love, and just Rick's posture, the whole thing. There was so much care taken to that it makes the whole page. And then you have all the stuff in the background, all the great sort of little Easter eggs and things like that. So I don't know if we actually got to this part where I asked you. So did you draw that particular pose and the kid there? Did you draw it from? You just doodled it that way, and you happened to nail it, which we do. Or was there a reference around? What? How did you get there? And by the way, so people know
usually when I'm
I obsess over little things like this, Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I could tell. I mean, with your work, I mean, you're into drawing all the details, and that's really what makes it fun for us and hopefully fun for the people looking at it. But sometimes I'll if I'm having a tough time, I'll take a photo. I'll look for reference, take a picture or whatever. This one, I don't think I did. Back then I used to have a mirror in front of me.
Yeah.
And my face, and which is why a lot of the characters end up looking like ourselves.
Right.
We're using ourselves as a model. The little kid, I don't think I use reference. Sometimes I get lucky and it comes out the way I envision it.
Yeah.
But those little bits and pieces of like you were suggesting before, characters in motion, even though they're sitting still. That's what gives the drawing credibility and believability for readers reading this, and I that I work on, and if I can achieve 75% or 60% of what's in my head, I feel like I'm lucky. And this one I got pretty lucky with.
Yeah, and these are the kind of images like for a reader, they may not notice the complexity of how this actually works, which is fine, right? Because that's you sort of my belief is always that you don't like. I hate going to a movie and where there's a great director and I'm keenly aware of the director behind the camera. Right, it kind of drives me nuts because it takes me out of. I don't want to be aware of the director. I just want to enjoy the work as a whole. Right, the director, the cinematographer,
right,
the performers, the script becomes one thing. And these are the kind of things that artists will sit there and say, God, Adam Kubert's so good, and I just can't figure out why. And it's these sort of unseen things, the things that work in a subconscious level that are so good. That make you a pro's pro, that's why I really really admire those things. So, but I'm going to move on because now we sort of get into my era when I came into Marvel, and we started doing the Ultimates, and you took over Ultimate X-Men. I'm just going to show this here because I love these little process things. When we go from your pencil, woo! Look at that, man. And this is where you start.
Richard Eisenoff.
Yeah, this is where you start to work. He's kind of a hack, and we just kind of give him work because he's a nice guy. And I love his French accent.
Yeah, me too. I think everybody does.
Yeah. It's funny because I refer to him as my little French flower. He's a spiky. so
that's funny.
So what is it about Richard's coloring that also you gravitate to?
Richard and I worked on, I think it was Uncanny X-Men, and this was,
Yeah.
when computer coloring was really just beginning. Maybe it's been out for 2 or 3 years. I'm just getting another call. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm declining it. Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
Wait, there you go. You're back.
Okay. So Richard was one of the first to take coloring to another level and
Yeah.
experimenting as as one of the first people to foray into computer coloring. When we were doing any X-Men, I would do whenever I have to draw a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
I see that as an opportunity to experiment. To either have them print from my pencils, color my pencils, do a different style, do really loose inking, whatever it is. And I remember a flashback that I did in Uncanny that I tossed to Richard to see what he would do.
Yeah.
And I usually don't give them, give the colorists direction because I don't want to restrict them at all. I want them to, they're a part of the creative process also. Richard came back with something that looked like watercolors, and it was amazing. He was, and still is, he's our flower. It's just amazing the work that he comes up with. And that particular cover that he colored, again, I think that was colored. All those, I think those Ultimate X-Men covers were actually colored from pencils.
Yeah.
Those weren't inked, and it's just fantastic. What he did with those.
Yeah, I remember working with Richard. We've been working for a while at this point, and I was about to start Daredevil Father, which was I was going to experiment with the form and my own penciling, and I was writing something for myself for the first time. So I even talked to Danny Mickey, who was inking it. I said, Danny, I want you to try something completely different. Go hog wild, surprise me. And I told Richard the same thing, and then these pages started to come in with these crazy watercolor effects, but they were different than anything that I'd seen him do before. So I was asking him what he was doing, and he was taking my pages, and then he was scanning them and printing them.
That's
and
right.
And then going in with the with the gray wash and physically watercoloring these, and then rescanning them, and then using that as a base for the color. It was some crazy stuff. But it gave it a really wild effect, and I loved it. So I was like, So with Richard, there's so many times where I'm just like, show me something new, and he comes back with something new, and inevitably, there's very rarely that he sends something in that I'm like, Richard. Except he likes to use purple a lot, so I'm like, Richard, tone down the purple, man. It's too much purple. But now you also did. Let me move. I love this cover, man. The simplicity. I love it. But you also, you worked on Ultimate Fantastic Four, with Mark Miller and the great Mark Miller and the brilliant Brian Michael Bendis. The two of those guys on this one project. So again, with the Ultimate Universe, right? We were trying to redefine things in a lot of ways. Was there pressure on you to look at this stuff and go, oh man, because what Kirby designed was pretty much perfect, right? Whoops, lost my ear. So did you feel any pressure there with respect to doing this series? Not only that, plus the fact you're working with Bendis and Millar.
Yeah, I again with a high level of naivete,
right?
Because if I really thought about what I was doing, I probably wouldn't be able to get it done. Reinventing the Marvel universe to reflect, a more contemporary, style and things that people can more easily relate to. I took the job and did it. The X-Men movies were really hot at that time, so I think the direction was to keep an eye on that, so everybody had leather jackets on and black and whatnot. But it was funny in doing that. I was how tall to draw Wolverine, because in the movies he's Hugh Jackman, he's 6'3" or whatever. Might have drawn that larger or draw him 5'3" the way he should be drawn. So I think I was I drew him somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But as far as redefining the characters, I didn't really think about that because I would never have gotten the work done. I just kind of did it. And Mark Millar, I mean, he was kind of green in comic books, so he wasn't and same with Bendis. These guys were the new guys.
Yeah.
So they're not, they weren't, although their writing styles were just incredible, even at that early stage in their comic book career.
Yeah. Now also, but you were also at Marvel when we made a turn from because I talked to Todd about this during his appearance last week. We made that turn from working in the Marvel style, right, which is sort of plot, to a full script.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a preference between one of the two? Did you have trouble adapting from one to the other?
Well, I usually I didn't work much from plot.
Really? Okay.
Larry Hama's scripts, were broken down panel to panel.
Okay.
With what I thought was close to finished dialogue. I've only worked plot style a few times. One of them being with Jason Aaron. I think it was a 10-page Magneto versus Iron Man story, where he wrote only like one page of synopsis that I had to break down into 10 pages. It was incredible. It was a great experience, and it was a lot of fun. Another one is a project which I'm not sure how much I can speak about, which is being, I think, announced today, but it was written again, which was written in, I wanted to try it again, Marvel style, plot style. And Jerry Dugan wrote it. One page of plot, again, that I broke down into 10 pages, which was a lot of fun, but, it's a lot more work, too.
Yeah.
But you have more control over pacing and timing and a lot more control over a story, which is, as storytellers, that's the name of the game. It's all about, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, Todd and I talked about this last week, where he's a big proponent of plot style, and we were running short on time, so we didn't really get into it. But that's all well and good, and the problem is that not every comic book artist is great at working out a plot style. I mean, I hear from a lot of artists that are like, no, I prefer full script. I'd rather have full script. It makes my job easier. And I from a writer standpoint, I see it sometimes where it's like, if you have an artist who maybe is a great draftsman but not the strongest storyteller, there's a little bit of hesitation with respect to plot style because they may not quite get what you're trying to get across as a writer.
Right.
The artists back in the the 60s, early 70s, they were sort of weaned on plot style. And look, when you look at those particular artists, they were the creme of the creme, or the creme of the crop, and so of course they were fantastic storytellers. Of course they were. But it is not everybody is a great storyteller. Some people are great illustrators and need would rather have someone guide them through the story. It's just different skill sets. But with someone like you, I could understand why Jerry or Aaron. By the way, I'm going to try to get Aaron on the show. We've been talking about dates, so I want to talk to him about this as well. But I could see how they'd be like, "Oh, Kubert's drawing? Sure, I'll do plot. No problem." If I was writing something and someone said Adam's drawing it, I'm like, "Ooh, this is going to be an easy gig because I could just write plot and let Adam do all the work, and then go back in and dialogue it." And it's funny because when I wrote for myself, that's how I did it. I would write myself a plot and then I draw it and go from there. So then you took a little sabbatical from Marvel, Adam, right? In like 2005. 2005. Look right here. Here.
Yeah.
You went over to DC for a little bit, right? I mean, and look,
I did.
These are outstanding covers, man. Did you do the gray tone on that one on the left? Is that? Clearly you did.
Yeah,
right?
I did. I actually drew that one on cardboard. I remember.
So it's on gray paper, and then you did everything else, right? You used the gray as the mid-tone.
Yeah. That was ink wash on just there's a name for the cardboard, like on the back of a pad. I forget.
Right.
Yeah, I would put blacks and then grays and add some white colored pencil and white paint. It was actually a tech, it's a common technique.
Yeah.
But I've seen my dad do it a number of times.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of easy. It's easier than just drawing in black and white, to be honest.
I've heard that, right? Especially especially with coloring. If you add that mid-tone first, it makes everything else a little bit easier. What I do love about that first Batman drawing, the one with the gray tones, is just the clear gesture drawing that you added here, like just sort of the S curve to the body. Do you start a lot of your figure work that way, with just like sort of trying to find the initial gesture, whether the curve of the spine to the outside of one of the legs or the inside of one of the legs? Is that how you generally start your action poses?
Well, I try to keep the gesture fluid. I don't know about trying to get the S curve in there, but I'm aware of trying not to do a drawing where the figure looks stiff.
Yeah.
And that's you could do that by turning the head a little bit, or having the torso twist a little bit. But then again, if you do it too much, it'll look forced and it'll look wrong. So there's kind of a fine line that I try to work through to get that that happy medium.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna ask you too much about your tenure at DC, but we missed you. We really missed you. We were happy when you came back.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Thank
a little bit of a return here. Hang on, one of my graphics is not working here. Okay, hang on a second. Where's the other one? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. Sorry,
there we go.
I'll just cover myself up. So yeah, you came back and again, it's like. You could see that the energy is still there, right? That you haven't lost an ounce of energy, but structurally, compositionally, things when you look back at, again, nothing wrong with that early Wolverine work, right? That was a different time period, but even you have to look at this stuff and go, yeah, I'm a better artist at this point. Do you, and also even stylistically, I see you experiment, which is something that I relate to because I get bored really easily. But tell me a little about that. I mean, do you find yourself getting bored with yourself after a while and just like, ugh?
I don't know if it's boredom, but it's more like story derivative, like the Wolverine Spider-Man drawing. Spider-Man I see as lighter and brighter of a character.
Yeah.
So I may draw him more open or more cartoony to get that idea across. Same with the Spider-Man Venom drawing. I mean, these characters have a lot of life, and it deserves a certain level of exaggeration. So stylistically, I'm not sitting down thinking, oh, I got to draw this cartoony. I just look at the project, look at the job, and think maybe this might work, maybe this won't work. And when you start a project, say a miniseries or whatever, the beginning always looks different than the end because you're becoming more comfortable. You're kind of figuring it out. So and it also depends on who's coloring it, who's inking it, as to, stylistically how a certain project is going to look.
Yeah.
When I worked on Ultimate X-Men, there was, I think Art Kubert was inking me, which gave it a more cartoony look, as opposed to John Dell or, a Danny Mickey, unbelievable draftsmen, unbelievable artists and inkers, give it another look. So really, it depends on a lot of different factors. I think if I'm penciling and inking my own work, which is what I usually do with my covers, that's probably where my head is at any particular time in my career, as opposed to when I'm working with someone.
So when you work on a story, do you work sequentially? Do you page 1, 2, or do you bounce around?
No, I work sequentially. I go from first page to the last page. I try to work on all the pages at once. At least 10 pages at a time, because I create like a what's the word? Jesus Christ.
Thumbnails, layouts.
Yeah. Well, momentum.
Yeah.
You have a momentum, from beginning to end, and then by the time you get back to the first page again, you see your mistakes a lot quicker. You have a fresher eye. So I like working on a lot of pages at once.
So do you lay out a bunch of pages at one time, or the whole book, or do you just what's your approach?
I try to thumbnail the whole book at once, so then I become familiar with the entire story. Because a lot of times things happen at the end of the story that key off of what's on the beginning, or vice versa. So you know, I read the script like 2 or 3 times, then I sweat like hell because there's a lot of characters I don't know because you start with a blank page, you're drawing characters and you have to make them act. You are those characters.
Yeah.
If you don't know them, it makes it really difficult. So I'll thumbnail the entire book. I'll probably finish 10 pages at a time, the first 10 pages, then work on the second 10 pages. But really, it goes faster for me because I can see the mistakes when I haven't looked at the page for a period of time.
Right. Do you ever lay out one of those pages that's like, it's in the middle of the book and it's just a really super complex page, and then you start on page one, you're like, oh man, it's like a freight train coming at you, right? Like, oh, I'm dreading this.
Yeah. It's those parade pages, that I dread,
Yeah. I was working on something where it was a character talking to a large audience at like a amphitheater, and I'm like, oh man. How do I use silhouette all this stuff out? How do I do it, right? Yeah. Was it when in doubt, black it out, right? That kind of thing.
Right. Exactly.
So I want to show some of your more current stuff, right? No, actually, you know what? You had sent me these, and I thought these are awesome. I wanted to show these for young artists out there. This sort of progression of your layout to a physical cover. Now this piece, this is for Wolverine cover, right? I love the you sort of ghosted in where you want the logo, and now this particular layout, is this a thumbnail or is this, what size did you actually draw this in?
That was drawn 8.5 by 11 paper.
Okay.
Probably half of the 8.5 by 11. So
essentially, you're drawing, because when I do my layouts, sometimes I'll start with a postage stamp. Where's my hand here? Postage stamp size, and then I'll blow it up to printed page size, right? And because I forget who it was that. It might have been Michael Golden or someone along the path of me getting to become professional had told me that if you're going to do your tight layout, do it at printed page size, because then this way, hang on, I'm gonna take this down here so fans get it. So if you do it at printed page size, actual printed comic book page size, then your layout, you can see exactly what the reader's going to see. Because if you lay it out at drawn page size, which is much bigger, your field of vision, unless you stand way back from your drawing board and you have really long arms to draw it, your field of vision can only take in half of that page. So your layout may not be as effective when it's shrunk down to readability. So I was interested in seeing how you did that, because I've always adhered to that. I've never really done layouts. Go ahead.
That's an interesting point that you just made, and I never thought about that. I think I'm going to do it that way from now on. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I found it to be very, very effective when sort of looking at the page and saying, okay, this is what it's going to look like very roughly when it prints. So anyway, so this is your cover layout, and then this is the amazing. I hate you so much. I really hate you so much here.
I hate you too, Joe.
Okay, well, that's mutual hatred.
Yeah. Totally.
This is just amazing, man. It's Omega Red, correct? Yeah, that's Omega Red. Just the look on his face and Logan struggling and stuff. There's now these characters are essentially vertical. I mean, you've done a little bit of a Dutch tilt to the horizon, right? For those who don't know what a Dutch tilt is, when a director, hang on, where's my hand here? No, that's not there. Here it is. When a director takes the horizon line and shifts it ever so slightly, right, to give you this sort of disturbed feeling. But again, it still feels like everything is moving forward and towards the reader, and that's I just don't think it's anything that you can really teach. It's something that you just do, and I love this piece. So I want to show that one off. I think I have one more.
That one, Joe, this one in particular, just to take a step back a little bit, I started drawing and inking my covers large. that was the first one that I did, and it came out. I was happy with the way it came out. That's 22 by 30.
Yeah.
That cover.
Wow.
Usually they're 10 by 15.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that when it's when I work on it that large, I can get a lot more detail in it. And it takes a little bit longer to draw, but not really that much longer.
Yeah. Is 22 by 30 the size that the artist used to work in around the 60s, Kirby and stuff? Because those pages were bigger than the ones that we work on today.
I think those were 13 by 18.
Okay.
I think they were, yeah.
I did one piece like that. It was a Daredevil page that I did for the that big Marvel 1000 anniversary thing, and I sent it to Kevin. And first of all, the pain in working with that is just like, it's just really hard. And I sent it to Kevin Nolan, who I love dearly, and who's one of the best inkers on the planet and one of the best artists. And Kevin said, "Let's not do that again." Because it takes an inker that much longer, but I'm sure when you start adding the detail and stuff tightens up. I remember doing the opposite once, where I was behind on a deadline, and I'd heard that some artists would draw smaller, and I hated the way it ended up looking because nothing tightens up. It just looked really kind of sloppy.
It's funny. You think when you draw smaller, it's going to go quicker, but I've done it. I've drawn smaller too, thinking it's going to go faster. You just draw smaller and try to put as much detail into the small things as possible.
It didn't make it go faster. It might have been faster for the inker, but it wasn't faster for me. And then, so you sent this one along too. Yeah. And I love this. I love this particular piece again because, the chicken scratch. Now this looks kind of just like a thumbnail, right? Am I looking at that?
That's a thumbnail, and when the creative urge hits you, you got to take advantage of it. This one I drew on an envelope, and I was stuck in traffic, and I was thinking about the cover that I had to do a cover sketch for, and I scratched that out and thought, wow, this could work. You know
what I find sometimes also is that I'll do something this small, and then when I start blowing it up, I lose the energy and I lose the line, and I can't find it. But now, so that became this. A little crazy there.
That was fun, and there's a face of, I guess it's of Dracula within the bats, and sometimes as you're working, mistakes happen, and happy mistakes. As I'm inking all the bats in, I thought, wait, I kind of see a face in the bats.
Oh wow!
And that's kind of how that happened.
That's neat. Look at that thing. Was that Izanov who colored this?
That was fun. What is that?
Who colored this? Izanov?
Oh, I think Edgar Delgado colored that.
Okay. Oh, Edgar's great. Yeah. Edgar's amazing.
Yeah, he is good. Yeah. Yep. He did a beautiful job on that.
Yeah. And then, and I'm going to show this off as well too because, hang on, let me. There we go. You feeling better, Adam? I'm back.
I do. I like seeing you.
Well, you're that it's only you. But I remember reading an article with when Frank Miller, during the heyday of Sin City, when he was just cranking on that thing and killing it. I remember reading an interview with him because I read every interview that Frank did, in which he talked about. Even in the middle of Sin City, he was still taking life drawing classes. And that really, really resonated with me. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I got to do that too. I got to keep fresh and continue to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, I haven't been to a life drawing class in a while, because of COVID. But you still, you still managed to do a lot of sketching. So I want to show these off. Where are these sketches from? And then I want to talk about a particular post I saw by you. But so these are just so, like really cool. Just looks like brushy Wolverine. Actually, I'm going to highlight each one. Yeah. So
those were interesting. I did a charity thing. This is during COVID. Through my comic book shop, Anyone Comics in Brooklyn, where they were doing a virtual figure drawing class. And I said, hey, I'd love to be a part of that. Well, they had Wolverine, a gentleman show up dressed as Wolverine, and he posed. And I did these sketches. Now I did the sketch, but I finished them. These are not 15 or 10-minute sketches. I finished them off later.
Yeah.
But I turned them into different versions of Wolverine. But yeah, these were based on figure drawings, on figure sketches that I did.
Okay.
And then I actually finished them off, gave them to the comic shop to kind of help them out a little bit, and I think at one point they're going to sell them and keep their business going.
So crazy energy there, man. Love it. But now
Yeah.
I did see a post from you. Was it on Twitter somewhere where you were actually sketching at some place in Brooklyn?
Yeah. I mean, I always have a pen on me, and whenever the urge hits, I sketch out in the field. If I'm at a restaurant, or just because I can't stop myself, I have to. And if I see something that's interesting, it's just fun for me, to try to get it down as quickly as I can. But the one thing that I do when I am out sketching, I'll sketch on craft paper. If it's a napkin or a placemat, and I never keep these things. I leave them, I throw them away, because when you're doing a sketch and you're going to show it to somebody, I feel inhibited. Like, I got to do something really good if I'm going to show it to somebody, even though obviously I take pictures of them and post them on Instagram, which is a different thing.
Right.
But as I'm drawing it, I don't take the sketches back with me.
Okay.
So it kind of frees you up it frees me up when I'm drawing, and figure drawing is really the basis of everything we do, and the more you do it, you're going to get better at it.
Yeah. You know what I've never gone to, and I really want to do it. And actually, you and I should do this together if you're amenable when we're able to do this together. I'm a member of the Society of Illustrators, and they have special sketch nights, or they used to have special sketch nights where they have, and I think they're doing them virtually now, where they have like a jazz band that'll play in their upstairs sort of little restaurant area, and artists just come in and they'll have a model as well, and you can sketch the model, you can sketch the jazz band, and I was just like, oh man, it feels like the kind of thing that those old school illustrators used to do, right? And it's just a certain you're sitting sipping your bourbon or whatever it may be, and you're sort of sketching, and over there
it's like ultimate drink and draw.
Yeah, basically. Let me tell you, it's a much better drink and draw. Okay, that's an awful stream.
Well, that's a date. That's a date.
Let's do that. Yeah, I mean, literally, I used to get the invites all the time. Like, I gotta go, and I just. There's a part of me also that feels intimidated, right? Because you walk in and it's like, you're the professional artist, and you got
to do something good.
Gotta be good, man.
I used to do figure drawing. I would go with my dad. He would, he was always taking figure drawing classes. Sessions. They're not really classes for him. They're sessions. And once in a while, I would go with him, and either I sat next to him and didn't get anything done because all I would do is watch what he's drawing, or I'd have to sit on the other side of the room and get something done. But it is the figure drawing sessions are awesome, and going with you to the Society of Illustrators, that would be a fun time.
Well, first of all, it's an amazing location, and anybody, you don't need to be a member to go there. I don't know if their doors are open right now, but when you can, you should go, because it's just a beautiful place.
You had a show there. I remember. I went, and that was a great show.
Yeah.
That was over at New York Comic Con, right? Last year. I think.
I don't remember at this point, but yeah, they had a show of my stuff, which was really quite the honor. I want to ask you a question also about yourself and actually your dad. Let me find a pen here. So Adam, when you draw, right? Do you draw normally like this, or are you one of the people that draws like that? You know what I'm saying? The sort of artist.
Let me see. That's it, like this.
Well, yeah. Well, but so do you hold the pen like a pen, or do you hold it, like when artists draw on an easel, like this?
Well, actually, I put my thumb up and then I start drawing. No, I draw. I don't draw like I have a brush in my hand.
I really want to learn how to draw like this. I think it's going to make me a better. When I see people do this, I'm like, oh man, the control. I can't, And then I saw a thing where Neil Adams was showing young kids how to ink, and he talked about, you don't hold the pen like this. You hold the pen you sort of roll the pen. You hold it on the. It was this whole thing about I can't master it. I can't do it. I just don't have the skill set. So let's actually get to some fan questions because we're running along here, and I want to make sure that the fans get their questions answered. These are questions that they've asked 2 times running now, Adam. So hopefully they're watching and they know we're asking their questions.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Our first question is from Joseph. Adam, who were your favorite artists in comics growing up? Let's exclude your dad, clearly. Who were they?
Alex Toth was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
How he could. I mean, we know, I know that it's much more difficult to draw simpler than it is to draw, and with a ton of rendering. Yeah. And you couldn't simplify it any more than Alex could simplify it.
Yeah.
Another guy I loved, my absolute god, is Mobius. Another guy that, I mean, he wears 3, 4, 5 different artist hats at once. He drew Blueberry, he drew Arzak, he could draw simple, complicated, but what he would always bring to the table was a level of draftsmanship, perspective, realism, creativity, imagination. I mean, all the above. Yeah. He was, he's hands down my favorite artist. Another guy I liked was Serpieri. He drew. I used to letter Heavy Metal magazine for like 10 years. I lettered it.
Really?
And I became, familiar with. I loved heavy metal before that. Yeah. But having all those go under my nose, I was, aware of a lot more guys than before that job. Yeah. Contemporaries, yourself. I copied, I showed you in a post, I think, I tagged you on it, the Wolverine that I had pasted. I had to get rid of that lamp. It just died on me one day. And I couldn't pull your drawing of Wolverine off of it. Azrael, I copied your snow, because rocks poking out of the snow. Yeah. I love your stuff. And I'm not just saying it because we work together, contemporaries, and you're basically my boss. I'm not saying it, but I really do enjoy your work.
Not really. CB's your boss. CB's your boss.
CB's my boss. My dog's barking.
That's okay.
Yeah. Brian Boland's work. Frank Miller you touched on.
Your dog agrees.
Darwin Cook.
Oh, Darwin
Cook. And it's funny because these artists aren't really, you don't see their style in my work. I'm not trying to emulate, but I do appreciate their storytelling and the level of craft that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I remember Jeff Darrow, who he worked, who's brilliant himself, who apprenticed and worked with Mobius for many years, posted something a while ago about how Mobius, used to erase and redraw stuff, and it was so antithetical to what I thought about Mobius, right? Because I've physically seen him draw, right? And there's actually a great thing on YouTube with Mobius, your dad, and Neil Adams.
I know
you know
this,
right?
And
it was some French TV show where these guys just drew, and I'm like, oh my god, it's 3 of the greatest draftsmen who ever lived just drawing on the show. And just to see Mobius just sort of do his thing. But I found that mind blowing when he's like, wait, Mobius like redrew figures because he didn't like them, like, so he's kind of human. But I'm gonna jump. I'm actually gonna jump to a question since we brought up Mobius. Okay. We do have one here about Mobius. So this is from Julian. Hi, dear Adam. When you draw Wolverine, he's so close sometimes to the French cowboy created by Jean Girard or Mobius. Was this an inspiration to your for your style? And would you one day draw a Lieutenant Blueberry comic?
I would love to. And yes, and yes. When I was going through my dad's school, one of the projects, and it's actually one of the projects that I learned most from, was to emulate another artist's style.
Oh.
And I chose Mobius. I did his Arzak character.
Okay.
I did probably 5 pages. It was as if, you were hired to ape another artist's style.
Right.
And you really have to study that artist and try to figure out what makes him tick. Mm-hmm. I think to this day, that has influenced my work.
Yeah.
From, 20 plus years ago. So yes, I would say, without thinking about it, without consciously trying to copy a style, it probably comes out in my work.
Yeah, when I read that question, I was like, oh yeah, I could actually see that. That makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. What do we got here? This is from Zach. What is it about Wolverine that keeps you coming back? For the record, you're my favorite Wolverine artist. Well, that makes sense.
It's one of the best characters on the planet.
Yeah.
Hands down. That's easy. It's a character that you can relate to. Physically, it's cool. He's got claws that are cool. He's a mutant, but he's got inner demons, which is really a fun story. Character driven.
Yeah.
Element that you can really expand on.
Yeah, there was. I'm going to name drop here because, and I'm going to show drop. I do a show called Storyboards, which, by the way, there'll be a new episode this Thursday on Marvel, so keep your eyes open for that. But my first guest was Hugh Jackman, and he talked about how he felt that Wolverine was irredeemable, right? But he didn't mean it in that sort of villainous way of being irredeemable. He meant it in the sense that Wolverine, because of the history of mind control and all the sort of stuff that went on with him, did some things that Logan himself, in his own right mind, could never forgive himself for. And in truth, really, the audience shouldn't either, except for the fact that they know that Logan was not in his right mind. That's juicy stuff, man. That is really, really juicy stuff. Because we all live with our demons, right? We all live with the things that we, that we ourselves feel, I can't forgive myself for that. Where other people look at it and go, well, maybe that's not so bad. But
right, we're all human.
Yeah, but in Logan's case, there's so much of this stuff that was built up and he has no recollection of. And so imagine living that life where somebody goes over to you and tells you, you did the most horrible thing possible. I hate you, and you're sitting there going, wow, if I really did that, I hate myself too, but I don't have any recollection of it whatsoever. So I think that really is kind of what makes him interesting, aside from all the other cool aspects.
They make great stories.
Yeah,
great stories.
They do. Let's see, who do we have here? Jose, as someone who's been drawing Wolvies since the 90s, what's the difference in the character in the stories from back in the day to the ones you're doing now? I would actually add to that. What's the difference in not just the stories, but also in your stylistic approach to the character?
The stories drive me. Depending on what's going on in the story, I'll approach the art in that way. When I was doing Wolverine with Larry Hama, this one story that comes to mind, which is probably one of my favorites, was a big fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth. And we both thought that, geez, if this is such a big fight, let's make the pages big. Let's do double gatefolds. Let's do as many gatefolds as we can.
Wow.
And back then, you really have to watch what you ask for because you might get them. And I got this one. The job took forever, but man, it was a great job.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to what I'm doing now. The printing is different. It is much better.
Yeah.
The reproduction is much better. The coloring is better. So you can do a lot more. You can take a lot more chances that way. I think. I don't think the storytelling has changed more than the technology to getting from point A to point B has changed, and I think that influences us and how we approach the work.
Cool, great. All right, let's see. We got John Rossetti. Adam, this is a bit a long one. Adam, I have a twin brother, Matt, and when we were young, we used to joke that I was going to be like Andy, and he was going to be like you. And Matt was going to be like you. So we both had our favorites, and it fed our friendly competition. Is there any sibling rivalry or sense of competition between you and Andy? I know my brother and I are best friends, but there's always that slight undercurrent. And then he says, also, an aside, at our first Chicago Con, we both had the honor of buying our first pages of original art. Matt scored 2 from you, from the Hulk and X-Men, and I scored 1 from Andy from his Cap run. We still treasure those pieces. Thanks for all you do. So, yeah, that slight undercurrent. Is that there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and John and Matt, who's writing the questions? Is it John or Matt?
It's John who's writing the question.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, I would be lying to say that, you know, I don't think there's always sibling rivalry among siblings. Now, two siblings that are doing the same thing in the same business,
right.
Of course there is. But for me, it was a healthy form of competition. Also, you know, growing up, I would see what Andy's doing, to this day, I see what Andy's doing, and you got to up your game and work a little harder. He'd see what I'm doing, and you know, vice versa. So absolutely, I mean, you know, we get along, and it's really, you know, it was really, like I said, a healthy form of competition.
Great. All right, let's see. Oh, here's a challenging one. This is from Dennis. Who's the better artist, Andy Kubert or Emma Kubert?
Well, we all know it's Emma.
Yeah,
you know, she does all the work for Andy.
Yeah. Kidding aside, it's pretty amazing to see how much of a comic book dynasty the Kuberts have become. I tend to agree, and I agree. I think it's Emma.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. I like this question. This is a cool question. All right, this is from Shashank. Hey, Adam, could you tell us more about your inspiration and the process behind your cover for Infinity #1? It's one of the best covers of the last decade. That's
funny.
Yeah.
Well, that, you know.
Can you see the image, Adam?
It's funny.
Let me make sure you can see the image.
What?
You can see the image?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see, you know, it looks like he's wearing a red shirt, but anyway, where it's placed. That particular, I mean, each cover, you know, each drawing is almost like a child, you know, and you can remember what you were doing and what you were thinking when you were doing when you were making that child.
Yeah.
That cover, you know, I was working with Tom Brevoort, editor, like best editor on the planet. Second best. Said we want to do a really dark image of, shadow image of Thanos. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to do it on gray paper, similar to how I did that Batman drawing. I said, okay, we'll do it. Now with that, you can't get black. It's, you know, you're working from gray. You don't want to hide all the gray with ink. So it turned out kind of grayish. And Tom says to me, yeah, I was hoping it would be darker.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you mean blacker? He goes, yeah. So I took that same drawing and just inked it straight on white paper.
Right.
And that's what came up. But, you know, when you're working with you want to make it shadowy, it's fun to try to merge the blacks and of the figure with the blacks of the background.
Yeah.
And you know, that particular one, that was the challenge on that drawing, but it was fun.
Well, it also seemed like thematically, all the covers ended up being like this, did they not?
Yeah, and that was Tom's idea, to do each cover thematically in a color. So this one was a blue one, there was a red one, there was a yellow one, a green one, and you know, so they had some sort of theme from cover to cover. Yeah,
this particular set of covers of yours reminded me of. I don't know if you're like me, but I remember every once in a while I'll do a cover layout. I'm like, I kind of like this as a theme for stuff that I want to do for a while, right? So I remember doing these. I did a series of like really sort of close-up cover images of characters where the cropping was just really sort of weird, as though somebody had an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And just snapped it at that moment. And I went with those for a while, and just sort of jazzed me. Do you do the same thing where suddenly you hit a layout and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do a series like this, you know, because it just
definitely
it just changes your perspective.
And by the way, I love those covers, and your description of it, where it looked like it's like a moment in time, like a picture was like if these guys were taking selfies, you know, you move the camera around, and it's taken. And those are, you know, I love how, I mean, let me ask you something. If we don't, you know, when you're designing a cover,
right? Okay,
and you know, you put your thumbnail down, you're trying to figure out the best layout. I find that I bring it into Photoshop and mess with the composition. That's where you can really make it happen. Does that work with you? Do you like?
Oh yeah. I mean, I used to physically have back when I really started working as a pro, I found a used Xerox machine. So, and not one of those. I had a massive industrial office Xerox machine in my tiny little studio apartment.
Right.
And that's how I did it back in the days, right? Because if not, I'd end up at the Kinko's or whatever the Xerox place was at that time, just like constantly Xeroxing, shrinking, and I would cut and paste.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I used the Xerox machine as a tool.
Yeah.
One time I was taking a copy and it was an accident. I moved the copy before it was done.
Oh.
But when you do that,
Yeah.
it's like you blur it.
Yeah.
You know? And I said, wow, this looks kind of cool. Another cover that I did, I actually did a tiny thumbnail drawing. And I blew it up, and I took that tiny thumbnail and blew it up into 11 by 17.
Right.
And you create the coarseness of the pencil.
Yeah.
That's what we used for a cover, which
Wow.
was kind of cool. But
yeah. So I do the same thing now digitally, right? I don't need the Xerox machine anymore because I could draw my layout, whether I draw it physically, digitally, and then I go in there and just lasso things up and increase it. Especially even like if especially with the heroic proportions of characters, right? If you draw the head on a superhero, female or male, just a little bit too large, it makes the whole figure seem normal or way too human, right? So you try to, so I find that I do that a lot. I tend to draw the heads a little bit too large with the form, so then then I'll just lasso and shrink it down a little bit, and suddenly you got Wolverine. You know what I mean?
It's really you're right because when you draw Wolverine's head too small, he looks too tall.
Yeah.
I just finished a cover this morning that the last thing I do, it's all inked, it's scanned in. I'm doing some putting some tones in or whatever, and I thought, geez, this character, I've got to make the head a little smaller. This character, and it changes everything. Maybe I'll tilt the head just a little bit, but it's such a cool tool to way to make the drawing better.
And it's funny because we work in this world, right, for so long, and you're so accustomed to what heroic proportions are as opposed to drawing normal human proportions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get into that right now, but any of you guys who are out there who are interested in stuff, just go pick up how to draw comics the Marvel way, and it'll explain all this sort of stuff. But then working in live action, working in television, and working on superhero suits, you realize that the hardest thing is to get the mask to work in a way where it doesn't make, because once you put a mask on anybody, it makes the head a little bit bigger, and then suddenly you start to lose those proportions. So how do you make the mask and then adjust the costume so that everything enlarges and the head stays?
How do you do that?
It's a long story, but sometimes it's also just having a performer who's physically that. I mean, working with Charlie Cox, it became Charlie just happened to have great proportions for the superhero kind of thing, and he had. It's funny because Ryan Meinerding, who designs a lot of this stuff for Marvel Studios, really designed that costume for us, and we talked about how Charlie has a great superhero face, because sometimes when you put a mask on a human, no matter how strong your chin is, it tends to weaken the chin and you sort of lose that squareness. But Charlie was great, and the mask fit him perfectly. We did a lot of work to get it there, because if not, the back of the head could look weird, and those are the things that if you don't work in the world of superheroes, and that's why Marvel Studios is blessed to have somebody like Ryan Meinerding there, because he understands it. He gets it. He knows what superheroes are supposed to look like, and that's why they translate so beautifully onto the screen. But it's not easy. Yeah. It's really not easy. And that's why I
never thought of that.
Yeah,
I never thought of that.
That's why I admire cosplayers who nail it. Some cosplayers are really just really good.
Amazing stuff
At nailing that stuff. Yeah. All right, let's keep going here. This is from Michael. Michael's a big fan. Love you, Michael. Thank you, JQ, for this opportunity. Thank you, Adam, for your art in all our favorite X titles through the years. Unique and unmistakable style. AVX storyline still is a favorite. Question: after consulting with writer/editor when you draw, is it in complete silence? Thanks. After consulting, is it just a vacuum and you just go do your thing, or what happens at that point?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
But if
especially if it's Tom Brevoort, you don't want to hear from Tom.
Yeah. If you have a question about the story, a question about the character, email and try to figure it out. At the end of a story, if there was a time where there was a hiccup up and you didn't, you missed something
Right.
in the story. You'd have to go back and revisit and make a correction. But knock on wood, usually, I get the script, I do my job, and I move on to the next script,
I also think it helps that you're Adam Kubert. They just like, okay, yeah.
I don't know. I'm working too. Look how dirty this eraser is. That's not from, this is from sweat,
Yeah. All right. MODOK. He says, awesome.
MODOK.
Question for both
I
of
love
us.
MODOK.
Name a Marvel character you would love to draw for a miniseries. Who would be the dream writer for it? Ooh.
Oh, geez. The character, I've drawn a lot of characters. The dream character. It's a Spider-Man villain. I can't think of the name of him. With the animal on his chest. What character is that again?
Is it Kraven?
He's got like a picture of an animal on his chest.
Kraven the Hunter?
Spider-Man villain. Yeah, the Kraven.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to draw him.
Yeah.
I've drawn him here and there, but that would be a fun thing. I used to say MODOK, but I think he was in Jason Aaron's story, or maybe I'm thinking about so the guy the villain that stretches out his eyes. What's his name again? He doesn't stretch out his eyes. He's got these things that keep his eyes open. He's mechanical, has a bunch of arms. Jeez, I can't think. He was really cool. I can't think of his name. Anyway.
Well, for me, it's usually I like looking at the characters that haven't been that don't have sort of a big series or anything like that. So I gravitate towards wish list of maybe Moon Knight, Namor. Wouldn't mind doing Doctor Strange. I've drawn Doctor Strange before, but if there was an interesting enough Doctor Strange story, maybe something like that. But those are characters that I tend to gravitate to. So, all right, let's move on. We got a few more. Juan asks, "What's the most important thing a comic book artist should learn how to draw?" Talking about stuff like anatomy, background. If there was one thing that you need to know how to draw as a comic artist, what is it?
Well, if he's talking about the figures, the most important part on the figures are heads and hands. Everything will more or less fall into place, but you got to nail the heads and hands.
Yeah. I've heard this attributed to Neil Adams. I've never heard Neil Adams say it. I hear a lot of things attributed to Neil Adams. I'm sure Neil has said it. Where he the thought was, if you're drawing a page, if you have one beautiful looking head and one beautiful looking large hand, everybody forgets whatever else is on the page. Those are the things people
that
focus
makes
on.
Sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And there's a lot to that. It's a bit of a cheat, but hell, whatever works.
We're not all Neil Adams,
yeah.
so.
And look, I think the beauty of being a comic book artist, or the curse of being a comic book artist, is that back in the day, in the heyday of illustration, right, with the guys like Rockwell and Leyendecker and Wyeth and you name it, artists were required to draw everything and anything on request. Comic books is really the last bastion for that kind of work, right? So as a comic book artist, you just don't know what a writer's going to ask for in a story. So you have to be proficient at drawing everything, and what you don't know how to draw, you gotta learn. I'll tell you a quick story. My old buddy Jimmy Palmiotti, right? Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy and I
we love Jimmy.
Jimmy and I were at the old Strand bookstore one day, and I think I was drawing. No, it was before I started Azrael, and at the Strand, they had the book dump, which was right at the front of the store, where they put all the stuff that just doesn't sell for $1. So I would always go through that stuff to see if there were any photo books, right? Because there was no internet. Right. So I remember buying a whole bunch of these dollar photo books, something on the Vatican, something on whatever. And then there was one odd one, which was there was a book on French ironwork, right? But it was $1.
Cool.
It was $1.
Right.
So, Jimmy, in his own way, just makes fun of, what are you going to do with the French ironwork book? I'm like, I don't know. You just never know. Then consequently, I start working on Azrael, and I remember there was a scene or a panel where where Denny described this sort of French chalet with French ironwork, and I'm like, I got it. You just never know, So and even today, when I go through the internet, if I see interesting photographs and stuff, I just clip it and I put it. It's called the artist morgue, right? That's what artists used to call it. Did your dad have a morgue?
Yes and no. Yeah, he got it from Carmine Infantino.
Really?
Carmine, for whatever reason, was looking. I don't know, maybe retiring, but he sold his swipe file. All our respects. My dad bought the whole file, and I guess that's what he used.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and for those who don't know, when we call it the morgue, it's just like it's generally a filing cabinet filled with.
That's what it was.
Just tons of photo clippings. Any magazine, you rip it out, you put it, and you file it in whatever it is whatever system works for you. So yeah.
My favorite book, and I'm sure you must have had a copy of this, was New York Then and Now.
Oh my
you ever
God.
had that book?
Oh yeah, of course.
That's like the best book.
Yeah.
Best book.
Yep. All right, let's see. Where are we? Oh, that was that. I just had to ask a question. We asked that one too. Okay. Patrick asks, when laying out a page, Adam, how often do you find the need to speed up or slow down the reader with your art? Is it hard to step back from the page to see the moments so you don't feel like the reader is rushing through the page? Ooh, great question.
That is a good question. That's a great question, and that has everything to do with pacing, and where you feel as though you want to dramatize that part of the story.
Yeah.
You can slow it up, or slow down a story by any number of ways. A large panel, more space between the gutters. You can speed up a particular part of a page by overlapping panels, making a lot of consecutive smaller panels.
Yeah.
There's tons of different ways. And that is very conscious. That's a conscious decision that we make. Page turn is very, very important.
Yeah.
You want to land on a mini cliffhanger, which gives more, of a dramatic reveal to the following page. A lot of times, for a page turn, if I want to give a lot of, impact to the next page, I'll leave off on a tiny panel, and the next page will be a big panel, which the contrast gives it a lot of impact.
Yeah.
So these are all things that I'm sure you think of, Joe, when you're when you're laying out a story. We all think of to make the story as fun and a reading experience as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into it, but if anybody is interested, one of my earlier episodes of this show is just me sort of talking about time and the idea of time in the world of comic books and page turns and eye movement and stuff like that. So just my own sort of silly theories on how to go about it. Let's see.
That could be a whole nother show here, because I love talking about
Let's do it.
I mean, when we get a script, like I said before, I start sweating, because I don't know the characters, I don't know this, but it's like a puzzle. You're trying to put this puzzle together, from beginning to end, and it's really it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I always compare it to writing a piece of music. That's sort of my background too. It's just sort of where is that crescendo in the story, right? And that crescendo, depending on the story, that crescendo could be a nuclear bomb goes off. That crescendo could be a kiss. It's all a matter of what you're working on and how to build up to that. So
and it can also be a really big panel, like a double page splash, or maybe it's a small panel with a lot of air around it, which will give it a lot of impact. So dozens of ways to do it.
There are. Just get it right. Really is what you got to do.
All right. And get it done.
Get it done. Let's see. This is from Jaden. How many drafts of a comic book do you typically draw? So.
How many drafts?
Yeah, I guess how often? I mean, how many sets of layouts do you basically do before you feel like you're there?
Oh, geez. When I'm thumbnailing a story, each page, if it's only one draft, I'm lucky. Usually, it might be two, depending on time. If I have a lot of time, maybe three until I get something. And it also depends if it's at the beginning of a story or the end of the story. Those are important scenes.
Yeah.
I usually, I go from the beginning to the end, when I do thumbnail the entire story. But when I'm finishing it, I try to spend more time on the beginning and more time in the end. And the middle it's not filler, but it's stuff that you can move a little quickly on.
Yeah. You know what? I remember hearing this saying a while ago, and I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. That the three most important pages in a comic book. You know this, right? The cover.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't know this? The three most the cover, the first page, and the last page. And
there you go.
And the reason for that is clearly the cover is what. If you have a compelling cover on the stands, right? Even if it's a comic that somebody doesn't like, they're probably going to be prone to pick it up and say, okay, that's a cool cover. They'll go to the first page, and then they'll leaf through, and they inevitably end up on that last page. And those are your three best. Those are your three best selling tools. Not that the middle needs to be crap, but it just goes. That's why a lot of comic books start with the splash page, right? Look at all those old Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve. They start with a splash page and they end on a splash page. You want to try to capture that. Sometimes it's hard, right? Because the story is so dense that you just have to, and sometimes you want.
I got a question. Yep. I got a question for you, Joe. Along those lines, why are pages 2 and 3 like a double page splash or the title page? Why isn't that on the first page?
I think it's just choice, artistic choice, and I think a lot of that happened. I think during the 90s, right, where artists were drawing bigger, pages were selling. Artists were drawing to sell. Let's face it, there was a to artists that were drawing really for the aftermarket, what the pages would sell for afterwards, right? So there was a lot of that stuff. There was a lot of splash pages that were just created simply because to sell, right? So, which would make the writer's job a lot harder, because all of a sudden, this one page where the team is jumping into action was really meant to be like a 6-panel page where the team was talking about jumping into action. So all of a sudden, you have this jumping into action with like a million word balloons going all across, trying to tell you why they're jumping into action, which is hysterical if you try to actually envision that happening in live action, But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff was going on. I mean, it was the economics of comics at the time. So, but yeah, I think I think it's strictly artistic choice. But going back to sort of the old rules, that first page is so integral to selling that book. Anyway, all right, we got one more question, Adam. One more.
Okay.
And you're free to go. We got through this without exploding. All right, this is from Andrea. The 90s artists were more or less able to keep up with the schedule. Now it's very hard to find people that can sustain a series for a long period. How did your approach change over the years? And do you think that this constant change of artists on the books affects the series in any way? Good question.
In a perfect world, everyone would be able to draw one comic a month, but it's not a perfect world. Life gets in the way. Sometimes you can hit that mark, sometimes you can't. Everyone aims to. Sometimes the story is more complicated, might take a little longer. So I don't know that in the 90s people were able to, produce more work.
Yeah.
I don't know that, it's easy, any easier or harder to do that now. For myself, I feel as though I've gotten faster because my printer just started up. I feel as though I kind of know better what I'm doing and more of what I'm doing, so I can work a little faster and get more done.
Yeah.
And back then I put a hell of a lot of detail in the work because that's what you did. These days, the coloring can make up for a lot of that detail. Right. In fact, you may not want to put that much detail in because you put coloring on top of detail and just muddy it up.
Right.
So I don't see it any different than the way it was back then.
Right.
In trying to get the work done.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't know that the 90s were any better. I mean, if we go back to the 60s and early 70s, I think there were people that were definitely working faster, but it was a different medium as well, right? I mean, and that's really the beauty of Jack Kirby. If you look at those Jack Kirby early pages, a lot of those pages didn't have any backgrounds, right? But they didn't need the backgrounds. First of all, because of the way that Kirby drew, but also the lack of detail was on purpose because it would just become mud. because of the printing technique. So there were adaptations that were made to the printing technique, and I do believe that as printing has become better, coloring has become better, and comic books graphically have to compete with video games, with movies. It puts a lot of pressure on the artists to try to keep that up, right? And to try to to sort of make sure that the art still has that wow factor, and that just takes a lot more time. This is not to denigrate the styles that are much more simplistic. And look, every once in a while you have a mutant artist who's just able to do super detail and is super fast at the same time. But the majority of us cannot keep up that pace with that kind of detail, But I think it's just the changing of the way that comics are actually produced and seen and stuff like that does.
Right.
And also the fact that there's, again, back in the day, there were, 10 Marvel comics a month. Now you've got, I don't know how many we're producing a month, but a lot more. So that means a lot more artists, a lot more writers. And, so those people that are, if it was only 10 books, we'd probably only be working with the fastest people at the end of the day. So it's just a changing of an industry. And, you can't go back to those times and just assume, well, why can't we do that again? Well, because it probably it's probably unfeasible, and maybe it won't sell, and there's a lot of factors that go in.
I also think back then, like Kirby, like my dad, this was a job to them. They were living page to page. There were no royalties. So in order to make a decent living, they had to churn this stuff out. They didn't have time to put in that kind of detail. And sometimes you make your best decision. Sometimes your first decision is your best, and you make, sweating over a drawing, putting a lot of detail in, when it's really not that necessary. I mean, look at what Kirby did. That was as much, because of the fact that he had to turn them out as well as the high level of craftsmanship.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was plotting too. That was the crazy thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, dude, brother, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, and
thanks for putting up with me.
I would say thank you for your patience, but it's really it's the folks out there. The folks out there have been patient with us. We finally we did it, Adam. We got it. So, all right, so listen. Let me say goodbye. Go to your printer. Go do your thing. I'm gonna go back to my solo cam here. I love you, brother.
This was a lot of fun.
Any party words? You got any party words for the fans out there? Any words of inspiration?
Stay well, wear a mask, be happy,
That's it. All right, man. All right, brother. Thank you. Love you. I'll
Thanks,
talk later.
Joe.
All right. Bye. All right, folks. We got through it. We made it. We got through all the technical aspects, and we made it through the interview with Adam. I hope you guys felt it was worth the wait. I feel like it was. I love the guy. He's just an amazing draftsman, teacher, lecturer, artist, you name it. So let's, next week, I don't know. I have no idea who our next guest is or if we're next week, but we'll figure it out. I got a few people on tap. Like I said, I've spoken to Jason Aaron. We're trying to find a good date, and there'll be others in line too. So as always, we will be continued at some point. Love you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear your mask, wash your hands, kiss your loved ones, and that's it. We'll see you soon. Okay? Take care. Let's see if this button does it.